Hello, everyone. This is John Adolfi with the Lost World Museum. We have a special guest here today, Alfred Lee. Alfred, welcome to the program.
Hello, John. Good to see you.
Alfred has the distinction and a long history of exploring Noah's Ark, and that's what we're going to do, but we're only going to do one very narrow aspect of the exploration of Noah's Ark, and we're going to dig deeper probably than I've ever dug before on this one aspect, and that's eyewitness accounts. Now, Alfred had the opportunity to be able to sketch the memories, because that's one of his talents is an artist, an archeological illustrator, as he will tell us. And he was able to sketch the memories of one of the most credible eyewitnesses to Noah's Ark, George Haggopian. Before that, let me just give you a quick background. Haggopian is Armenian, and there's a whole story about his life that we're not going to be able to get into today, because what we want to focus on is the interface that happened between him and Alfred over an 18-month period where Alfred actually sketched his memories, and we're going to show you those sketches, and we want to ask Alfred a few poignant questions regarding the experience that he had and what the interface between him and Haggopian as he was sketching was all about. So, Alfred, go ahead and tell us how you first met George Haggopian.
It was right after our first expedition in 1969. We were fundraising. I was the secretary-treasurer of the foundation, received a lot of letters and checks. It was going well. But then one day a letter came with a check, but it was from Mary Board of Annapolis, Maryland. She was a real estate agent. Familiar to you? And she said, I know a man who has seen Noah's Ark, and we've seen you on television and in the news, and I think you would like to meet him. Well, I picked up the phone, called her number that she gave, and went out to see her in Annapolis, Maryland, and she took me out to see George Haggopian in Eastern Shore, Maryland, just across from Annapolis. And that's how I first met him.
So it was a meeting between the three of you, was the initial meeting.
That's right.
And then what gave you the idea to sketch his memories? Was at the first meeting or after you left and gave it some thought?
It was after. I was not prepared for anything. I did have a camera, yes, but I always do. But she took some pictures of the two of us together, George and me, and a painting that I had just done. There it is. Mary took that picture. All right. But when we started talking, and we talked for over an hour together, I did have pieces of wood. I did have photos of the expedition. I was able to answer questions that he had of me that proved to him that I had been there. And he became very animated and interested. And so did I. I got very interested. I says, look, I have got to tape you and I have to draw your eyewitness account. May I come back later? So I did. Came back just a few days later. And, I started drawing and taking notes. And Mary stood by. But I also got friends. I wanted to share this man with everyone that might be interested. So I started with the Middle East Research Foundation, called them out and brought them out. They were standing around, had some questions. And I was taping away, just my little tape recorder. And it was before these things. whatever these things are. So that was the first day that was very high quality. It yielded a lot of information.
Now, when you met him to begin the process of drawing, I'm assuming you were alone with him?
Well, Mary was there. Maybe on the second day didn't have too many, but when I started drawing, we didn't have much interruption. I just drew and drew, and I have my preconceived ideas of what Noah's Ark looked like, from all the paintings, a canoe-like thing or whatever. But he changed my whole idea of what Noah's Ark looked like. And if I made any variation from what he said, he got a little upset and said, nope, erase that. No, it was like this. This was here. That was there. He was 74 at the time. I'm 85 now. So I've gone beyond his age. I can understand how he felt. We old people are a little cantankerous. And he was a little impatient too.
All right. So let me ask you this. What did you use? What medium did you use to begin the first sketch?
As usual, in illustration, you draw with pencil. I use pencils, a lot of erasing, and it's not until later are we able to get it down into color. Color is the last thing.
Let me pull up the ultimate sketch. Let's do that on this. Here we go, Alfred.
All right. That's the color version that he approved. And before that, a lot of sketching in pen and pencil, paper and pencil. Yellow, that. This is my technology right here. That's about it. Very simple, very direct.
Alfred, when I was reading the account of the Russians in 1916, 1917, they had said that the decks were rounded, and they were talking about the exterior. They were talking about the Ark when it came to the edges. And this was one of the things I believe you told me that surprised you. You had a preconceived idea. Let's say here, let me show you the box version where we've got straight corners coming in. Okay. 90-degree angle. And, when I was in the Navy, you would never design something that way, but you could very easily mistakenly create an illustration because it was an arc, it was a box. And who would have thought of curved edges?
Yeah, he was only 8 when he first saw it. And he evolved a little bit as I would ask questions. And so you see here one version more like the Russian saw. You see the front quite rounded. What he described as an 8-year-old boy was more square. He just said it looked like a box. So what am I to do? I drew a box. And he said it looked like the barges that he had seen on the Great Lakes.
Oh.
Yeah. Is that kind of a barge?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. Now, this is a modern ship. Uh-huh.
That's correct.
Okay. With except for the upper part, I don't know what you call that. But it wasn't that rounded. Not that rounded. It was not made to move, but mainly just to wallow and be a very stable. In fact, the U.S. Navy, when Hollywood made a movie, here's the book of the movie by Hollywood, and in there, they took my drawings to the Navy Hydraulics Lab in San Diego, where they study ship design. They made a scale model of Noah's Ark from my drawings, which are from Haggopian. Personally, this is very important. It's eyewitness, a live person, one-on-one, not hearsay. He and I were eye to eye, and I was able to draw. This is a golden, rare opportunity for an illustrator who's trying to create something as accurately as possible, and who was alive and able to tell me, no, move it there, do this, erase that, So we created something, and I rounded the corners eventually a little more like you see the Russian. Okay?
He also had a set of head of keel, and I think you were surprised about that?
Well, yeah, but we evolved. It took a year and a half to do a simple drawing. But little by little, as I asked questions, he'd kind of scratch his head. Yeah. Yes, I agree. It was kind of like that. And he was, trying to remember. And we had other people come out, journalists, movie makers, book authors, all kinds of people, everyone that I could think of to come out. I wanted it to be completely transparent. I didn't want to rely on myself. And so people had a lot of constructive questions. And he would he wasn't dogmatic too much, though a little bit at 74, he was a little bit set in his memories. But he was flexible.
And was there any time during the interview that, even in the beginning, that you were unsure that he was telling the truth? You were unsure of him, and that whether or not he was telling the truth. Was there that evaluation period that you're like going, is this guy really for real?
No, I don't remember that I doubted him. There were some that I brought out there that did doubt him.
Mm-hmm.
And he doubted them. He told me later, after that fat man left and that other guy with no hair and whatnot, he said, I didn't trust them. They have an agenda. They're out here to make some money. He told me right up front, I don't want my name in the papers. I don't want fame. I don't want money. I just want you, Freddie, he called me Freddie, to go back to Mount Ararat and find the Ark. And that was his whole purpose. Not money, but these other people, he said, seem to have an agenda for their own fame and fortune.
I see.
He discounted them. Their attitude somehow came through.
But I think many people that watch this broadcast are going to know about the Ark Encounter in Kentucky. We went together, actually, for the first time, each seen it for the first time. And there you go. And I remember, Yeah, you bought it there, right? When we were there at
Yeah,
the store.
by Ken Ham.
Yeah.
Yes. Very good book. A good man doing God's work. Very fine. But he allowed somebody else to put these strange fins on the bow and the stern, which the Navy would laugh. You know, it's sexy, it's very attractive, you know, but it's not accurate at all. And I wish we could have talked to him when we were there. Remember?
Yeah, we tried.
He didn't have time for us.
No, he didn't. He just got done with a presentation and he knew we were here. We told him who we were. And unfortunately, you know, we weren't able to talk to him.
Yeah.
So, but I remember one of the things that you said, which means that you got this information somehow. You said the planks that were on Ken Ham's boat were not as wide as the planks as you understood it, perhaps from Haggopian. I don't know. And if you don't remember that, it's okay. But I
don't remember him telling him any dimension, but he said that they were very well fitted, like tongue and groove and wooden dowels.
Yeah.
That was very clear. And that there was a kind of a shellac painted over it. This would be the resin that was the Bible calls pitch. Probably a kind of a resin from a tree or a plant, because this was before the flood and before petroleum. It takes time for petroleum to develop. Coal and those kind of things are created by flood and time and extreme pressure.
Alfred, I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing with us this exciting information.